to anybody listening. If you are an author and you're interested in participating in Hometown Novel Nights, reach out through the Facebook page, get a hold of Angie, get a hold of Scott Gallion, get a hold of Sherry Marchisello, and you can also obviously get a hold of me, and we'll see about getting you scheduled into an author event in the coming year. We hold them monthly. So with that, all right, so tonight's lineup is really special. So I'm going to kick it off here with a little bit of introduction about Chellie, because I've known Chellie now, wow, well over a year, and probably almost a year and a half now. And Chellie had done, when she had her first book out, an event with us, and I know that she just put out her second. She's in a genre that is special because it's not entertainment from our side of it, as it being some kind of wonderful Southern fiction story or a cozy mystery or something like that. Her background is in personnel and helping people get hired. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She's an award-winning local author from Moreland, Georgia, right down the street from where I live. Shelly Phillips has got combined over 20 years of corporate experience with 15 years of mentoring college students as they begin their professional careers to create Successfully Ever After, an online earning program designed to land you in the interview seat of your dream job. So she helps young people get out into the career world. For over 20 years, she has worked in the field of public relations, marketing, and communications. Bren, you should relate to some of that. Totally. And currently serves as the Vice President of Communications and Public Relations for Coweta Fayette EMC. Before that, she was a features editor at a daily newspaper and even dabbled in radio news. Her personality will reflect that. She's an author, speaker, motivator, and a kick in the pants when she needs to be. Her first book, When in Doubt, Delete It, was published in January 2019, received the Author Academy Award for self-help category in October of that 2019. The entrepreneurial spirit is also strong in Phillips, as she launched her personal career branding coaching business in 2019 as well. So she's got a great, if you want to see a really well professional, polished website, go visit Chellie Phillips' website. She has her husband, obviously, and two mutts. So we have dog lovers tonight and animal lovers, Izzy and Roxy. And she's actively involved in the community, serving on the boards of the Noonan Coweta Chamber of Commerce, Elevate Coweta Students, and the Coweta Community Foundation. So she has her fingers well entrenched in our area. Her speaking at events all across the country and advocates for other communicators by serving on the board of and you can explain what all this means, the NRECA Council of Rural Electric Communicators and Cooperative Communicators Association. Her work has been recognized by the Spotlight on Excellence program, the Cooperative Communicators Association, the Alabama Public Relations Society, and the Alabama Rural Electric Association. She received the prestigious Outstanding Alumnus Award from Troy University, which speaks about her Alabama roots, the University of Journalism and Print Department in 2000. When in Doubt, Delete It was her first book in 2019. A reviewer said it this way: When in Doubt, Delete It is a fun, informative take on finding balance and letting go of the unattainable need for perfection. I loved the down-to-earth, sensible advice. Any woman, no matter where they are in life, will benefit from Chellie's wisdom. I find that book, and Chellie, you know what I'm about to say, is ideal for authors because we get cluttered. I hear people ask me all the time, how do you do all that you do? Now, I cheat because I'm retired, so I have plenty of time on my hands. But I understand what it means to have a lot on your plate, and you got to decide what to keep and what to delete. Her recent book just came out, was Get Noticed, Get Hired, and it's published by Author Academy Elite this year. The review claimed it this way: Get Noticed, Get Hired should be one of the first tools that you add to your job search toolkit. Chellie is a wise and experienced guide that can help you to understand how to start the process, set yourself up for success, and get noticed for the opportunities that are an ideal match for your skills and experience. So, are you ready to up your career game? Is what Chellie will ask you right away. That's her slogan on her webpage. She also claims to be just a simple Southern girl who loves to help others. Yeah, she's dynamite. Okay, Chellie has been a huge supporter of Hometown Novel Nights for well over a year. And now that she has her second book out, let's hear from my friend, Chellie Woodham Phillips. Miss Chellie.
Thanks. I said, you make me sound really great.
You can pay me later.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'll have to make sure Santa stops by there in a couple of days. But yeah, so it has been quite a busy 2 years. If you had asked me if I would have put 2 books out back to back, I would have probably told you got to be crazy. That's not going to happen. Not working 8 to 5 too, but you know, it kind of came together and worked out. So it's been a fun journey to get it all done. So.
Well, that's fantastic.
I don't know, you know, you mentioned that the background was in journalism and everything, and I really think that's kind of what helped the process for me. I am very much entrenched in deadlines, and the other thing is I like waiting to the last minute to get it done, because I think that's the nature of a journalist, is that we can't help ourselves. If you give me a 5 o'clock deadline, I'm going to squeak it in there like at 4:59 and a half. And so but I think, you know, I think we kind of work that way. You know, it's like, if I have that much time, I'm going to take that much time. And so, you know, that's one of the things I always tell people, is set yourself those deadlines. And that's the same thing with the get noticed, get hired thing. If you're looking for a job, you know, it's like, treat it like a job and set yourself a deadline. You're going to do these things every kind of day. But it's been a real interesting process, going from journalism to corporate PR to turning around. And instead of telling someone else's story, telling my stories for people, because that's kind of what I did through, you know, in journalism, I was always interviewing someone else and putting their story out in front of people. And then, you know, once you move to the corporate side, you're putting out your company's vision and their words and that kind of thing. And so it's quite an interesting swap to go to writing something that you enjoy, something that matters to you, something that you feel, and turning it around and then putting it out there for the world to see. So,
Chellie, because the first question is I always look at authors and writers to talk about themselves, because I don't know, I have found it that once your readership, or once potential readers get to know you as a person, they take ownership in your books. They want to read what you've written. And I think that that's true. The most popular authors are that way. I mean, we all know the John Grisham's story, or James Patterson, or et cetera, et cetera. And so I would like to ask you a couple of questions. One is, I've never asked this. Are your roots in Alabama? Being as you're a Troy University girl. Where were you raised? They
are born and raised in, I like to say, in LA, or Lower Alabama, which is the way to be in, not the other one on the other side of the world. And so I am a South Alabama girl. And that was kind of the, you know, like when you're talking about in radio, I said it was always so funny, is because I had to work so hard in radio not to sound like I sound now. And so it was, you know, that's why I turned to writing instead of radio, I think, is because I didn't have to work so hard at it, because you can never undo the Southernness that's in me. But yeah, born and raised in South Alabama, and I actually moved less than about an hour away from home after I graduated, got a job, you know, the whole life thing, get married, all that kind of stuff. And moved to Georgia about 3 years ago because of a chance to come to Coweta Fayette EMC and take on their corporate public relations. So, I'm Southern to the core between Georgia and Alabama.
Well, you know, I sensed that was true, and maybe you had said that to me before. But you know, there was a time that my wife and I lived outside of Fort Rucker, and I actually taught and coached in Ozark. And
so Ozark's my hometown.
Yeah, I Yeah, Carroll High. So, in the middle school. And, went to Troy on several games and all that kind of stuff. So, but that's okay. We won't hold that against you because I've got a lot of cousins over across the border that are still in Alabama too. So that's fantastic. You bring those roots with you, Chellie. I know that. So tell me about your writing journey though. You're busy, you're a corporate, VP. How do you find the time?
It's like anything, you make time to do the stuff that you enjoy doing. I got the way I got started with the book was actually through blogging. And so that's how I got found. That's how I got noticed. And when I just started putting things out there that mattered to people that were in my career field, things that I wished I had known, way early on, and some of it was technical stuff. Some of it was, how to get along with coworkers that just drive you absolutely insane. How do you deal with a boss that's driving you nuts? All those kind of things. And so I had been blogging for almost 2 years, and that turned into a chance to be able to do a book proposal, and the book proposal turned into now 2 books. And so, but really and truly, I'm a Saturday writer, and I am a 7:30 to midnight kind of writer. And so, but you make time to do it. And I'm not by a clock. I don't do it every night. It's kind of like some nights it's there, some nights it's not, and I don't get stressed out over that. And I'm very much when I sit down to write, I pretty much have an idea of where I'm going with it and kind of thing. So I generally outline something, and then I'll take that and make sure I've got all my key points, and then I just kind of go. And that's been the fun thing with the journey of this whole process. And you mentioned the southernness. When I was working with the publisher and everything was, I didn't want to lose my voice in what I was doing. I wanted it to sound like me. If I threw a y'all in there, I wanted it to stay in there. Or if I said bless her heart, y'all all know, being Georgia and around South, you all know that bless her heart can have a lot of different meanings depending on how you use it. And so, I had to make sure that they understood that and they kept my flavor with what I was doing. And that's one of the things I always encourage people that are interested in writing and doing is make sure you keep your voice. It's important. It's important to me in my blogging. It's important to me when I do my coaching with my clients and things like that, is that, we kind of have that rapport, and I can be pretty straightforward with you. And I like call it a truth teller, whatever it is. Be true to yourself, be true to your audience, and and it's going to work for you.
That's great. So Chellie, I know about your, when in doubt, delete it. I remember us being at the Monarch House together, and we talked about that. Excuse me. And so as an author, especially in your busy schedule, was that something that you personally experienced and then decided, well, maybe I should help others understand how I did what I did because I knew how to delete it? Tell everybody a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when in doubt, delete it. I like to say that came from my circle of, I'm really blessed to have a really great circle of women in my life. And I've been blessed to have them from millennials all the way on up to like my grandmother. So they span probably from 25 to at the time in her 80s. And so it's quite a perspective on life if you look at how everyone is looking at it and that kind of thing. But the thing that was really neat to me is that it all really comes back down to the same core things. It's all about family, it's all about faith, and it's all about staying authentic to yourself. And so the book basically sprang from stories from different women that I've encountered in my life at different points in times, and how they either overcame a challenge, how they decided to face one, or, the advice that came. I said, the one thing that we all shared is we share tears, we share laughter, and, we share that need for encouragement along the way. And so that's really where that book sprang from was, I want you to know you're not alone in this journey, that there's someone else who feels the same way that you feel, who has been through the same thing. And then there's also that group of people that's going to be supporting you, encouraging you along the way. And that's the people that you really need to make sure that you have in your life. You need to find those encouragers that are going to be there and support you, and also be the ones that are going to tell you the truth. You know, it's great to have people that tell you, yeah, rah, 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 but it's also good to have that person that says, okay, slow down, take a step back and look at what's going on. And I've been super blessed to have that whole group of people throughout my career. And it's really funny, between the research for my first book, The When in Doubt, Delete It, and the Get Noticed, Get Hired, one of the things that you notice a lot is that with women in their careers, especially, we tend to apologize a lot. We tend not to negotiate on things. We tend to take on more than some of our counterparts at some time, or at least the feeling of ownership that we have to make everything right and that kind of thing. And so it's been real interesting. I said, you know, I wished I'd learned 20 years earlier what it took me, you know, all this time to learn. And that's where the When in Doubt, Delete It came from, was to be able to share these stories and share these things along the way, so that someone has, you know, if you're going through it, you're not necessarily going alone. You can pick up the book if you need to, if that's what you need for your encouragement, and that's what you need to take it, and you don't have that person there beside you. I tell everybody, I said, I wished I had a front porch swing that was as big as everybody that ever read the book, because I would love to have you all share a glass of sweet tea and just talk it through with you. And that's kind of what I did with the book, is like, we talked through everything in the book. Every chapter ends with kind of 3 questions to reflect and think about what you could do and how you could implement these things into your life, and move from there.
What would be your recommendations for somebody to buy this for? Which book would go to which kind of, you know, reader, potential candidate to benefit from your book?
So When in Doubt, Delete It is very much female focused. But I will say that I've had several men that have read the book and have enjoyed it as well. But it's really written probably for that person, say mid to late 20s on into probably 40-ish, that kind of thing. Anyone who is dealing with a career, balancing family, work, life, all that kind of stuff. The people that I highlight in the book, some of them come from my days on the college campus when I was working with sorority women. And some of them go all the way up to a friend of mine died from pancreatic cancer. I had another one that was a breast cancer survivor, and some of their stories in there, the things that they faced and that kind of thing. So it's really kind of a eclectic mix of that, but it's really probably any woman that's looking for encouragement in any different kind of aspect of their life could probably find a story in this book that they would relate to. And then
Fantastic.
Get Noticed, Get Hired is definitely, it's really geared for someone who has not been in the job search market. So like if you've been in your job and now you faced a layoff or a furlough for the first time in say 5, 6, 7 years, because it's changed a lot. You don't go to the classified ads in the paper anymore. Everything is online. It's all about the digital presence and that kind of thing. So it's for the college student that's graduating, getting into the workforce, or for someone that has not been in the workforce or in the job search for several years now, just so that they can update their presence and find out all the key things that people are looking for that actually makes them the person that gets noticed and gets hired.
I want to thank Chellie for offering all of that stuff. And I already am thinking, I said, I've got the deleted one, you know, When in Doubt, Delete It one really would apply to my 2 sons, who both are in corporate life, but they've got families at life, you know, families that are running around in, and they're always complaining they never have enough time. So that's awesome.
Throw out there a shameless plug since we're talking. The audio version of that book is going to be available the end of this month. So that has been a fun process too. So converting from written word to audio has been really fun to do that whole process and everything. And so it will be, hopefully, if all goes well, knock on wood, by the end of December, it'll be live and ready for people to download too.
I know your books are on Amazon. That I know. Your audios and all that stuff will be there. Where else can people get your books?
Any of the big booksellers, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any of those kind of places. And then locally at Corner Art Gallery here in Noonan. And then there's a couple of places in Alabama, small town, Ozark. If anybody's interested in those, I'm happy to let you know.
We will move forward. and talk about and introduce Miss Kathy Manos Penn, who I had the pleasure of bumping elbows with. I guess it's now been a couple of years. We did a multi-author event up there. Was it in Dunwoody where we were at, Kathy? Is that when it was at? Yeah, I thought so. Okay. And I said, who is this author talking about dogs in the story? I'm like, wow, this is cool. Because that time you had your banjo, the band. What's the title of that?
Lord
my brain's
Banjo.
dying. Yeah, Lord Banjo, the Royal Pooch. Yeah, you go. If I cheat and look at my notes, I'll be saved.
Okay.
And but I just remembered seeing the image, and I thought that was so just so cool. And then I started to follow you, and I saw some of the things that you were doing, and I said, this is fantastic. And then all of a sudden you came out this past year with the book, the series of the Dickens and Christie series, and I think that's fantastic. So a little bit about Kathy. This is how it's kind of, I'm going to quote her own words a minute. She says, picture me sitting serenely at my desk, surrounded by my four-legged office assistants. The dog warms my feet. The cat provides the perfect background music. I sip hot tea, sift through handwritten notes, and type as thoughts take shape. Such is the joy of writing. She says, I'm living a dream I never knew I had, writing cozy animal mysteries featuring a dog and cat who talk to their owner, and winning a 2020 Reader's Favorite Award for the first book in the series. Naturally, my office assistants help with the dialogue, and yes, they're angling to be listed as co-authors. She goes on to suggest, if you can't find me, I'm traveling in the UK doing research for my next mystery. So don't judge her. I'm thanking God that she's not in the UK at this particular moment. Although I guess that would be possible. And I think that's fantastic. So Kathy, I think that's great that you're here. You've authored, there was 2016, the Ink Pen, Celebrating the Magic in Every Day. Was in 2016. Lord Banjo, which is the one I remember the most, the Royal Pooch in 2017, which now has a coloring book associated with it. Her Dickens and Christie mystery series just came out this year, the first three: Pumpkins, Paws, and Murder, Bells, Tales, and Murder. And the book that drew me to make sure you were here tonight was Whiskers, Wreaths, and Murder. It's a Christmas cozy mystery with the dogs and the cats. And I think that's fantastic. And you've got Collector's Cars and Murder coming out in a couple of months, in February?
Right, February.
Okay, there you go. And you can get the first three books in a series in Kindle, I believe. Is that right?
Right, they're now on a box set, Kindle only. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. All right, so I'm going to introduce you by your lead into your story. I read this and I thought, I said, this captures, I think, a little bit about you. Long before Amazon took over the world, my mother and I shared the joy of haunting used bookstores and discovering yet another good mystery. Kathy's from the Atlanta area, and I didn't want to take claim to a specific one because I always get in trouble when I try to do that. So you're from the greater wonderful city of metropolitan area of Atlanta. And like I said, I've known her now for a couple of years through some of the events that we've been involved in. And I look forward to hearing more about you, your books. Tell me, let's talk about your background, because I know you've got a columnist background too. So I got three columnists, tonight. I think that's cool. And tell us a little bit about your background that way, and then your writing journey to getting published.
Okay. Well, I'm going to kind of combine it. And I like to say that there are two things about me that people who know me today never believe. The first is I was born in New York City. You'd never guess that by my accent. And lived there until I was 13. And the second is that I really was a shy, introverted bookworm. Now I'm still a bookworm, but I got over the introverted part. And I was part of a boisterous Greek-Italian family. My Greek aunts married some Italians, and I was the little girl in the corner with the book. So much so that my mother worried I wouldn't develop social skills, but I managed. So we moved to Clarkston, Georgia when I was just shy of 13. And trust me, I thought it was the end of the world. I never owned any go-go boots, but now I'm giving away my age, but you can see I have gray hair. I wanted go-go boots. I never got any. But when we got here, everybody had saddle Oxfords and crew socks. I rapidly got saddle Oxfords and crew socks. And I was your typical Southern teenager. I was on the drill team. So I always say I was into books, boys, and the drill team in no particular order. But I read all the time. I tucked novels into my textbooks. So I've been an avid reader all my life. A lot of people say they always knew they wanted to write. I did not know that. I just knew I wanted to read. So naturally, when I went across the street from Clarkston to the junior college, I majored in English. Didn't want to be a teacher, but I thought, well, what else am I going to major in? And I loved English. I loved majoring in English. And I became a high school English teacher. Believe it or not, in DeKalb County, Georgia, at that point, when you became a teacher, you had 7 years to get your master's degree in order to get a job. Can you imagine? So I set out to get my master's degree in English. And right after I got it in March, I resigned in June. So I only taught 4 years. And, I thought I was going to go. I thought teaching was political. What did I know? Till I left there and wound up in the corporate world. I mean, imagine. So, but I wound up in the corporate world, and I went to work for a bank. And I know you're not supposed to say this, but I don't do numbers. Girls are not supposed to say that, but I don't. My sister does. She has her own little bookkeeping firm. But whatever job I had at the bank, my manager figured out I could write. And I didn't think that was any big deal. That was just what I did if it needed to be done. And it was like, give it to Mikey, the old commercial. It was give it to Kathy. And I was in personnel. So Shelly, I know a lot about what you were talking about. I was in personnel. I ended up in leadership training, which I loved. And I was always the one who was like, oh, okay, so the chairman is going to do an award ceremony. Well, Kathy will write the invitations and Kathy will help with what we want him to say and da, da, da. Finally, the last 12 years of my 32-year career, I had a job that had the word communications in it. And I was still writing presentations, PowerPoints, but I also did a lot of, without having the title, kind of coaching. So I had great managers, mostly, definitely the last 8 or 9 years of my career. And I would say, if you say it this way, they're not going to hear it, and they would listen to that. And so, that's what I did. And I also did some leadership blogs and things like that. And I just enjoyed myself. At one point, when I got married, we moved to Dunwoody. I had lived in town Atlanta forever. And we moved to Dunwoody, and there was a small local paper, the Dunwoody Crier. It still exists today. It comes out weekly. And it was my lifeline. I didn't know anything about Dunwoody. And if I wanted to know where to buy firewood, or the first time I ever went to a library sale was because it was in the Dunwoody Crier. And in 2011, we were still suffering through the 2008 financial crisis. Remember, I was a banker, so I know it didn't only last a year. We all suffered through it. And the managing editor was leaving the paper and wrote a farewell column because she was moving to another city. And she, kind of gave this plea. The paper needs your support. The small businesses need your support, much like it is today, but for a very different reason. And I thought, oh my God, he needs a cheerleader. In fact, the editor and owner of the paper was Dick Williams. And anybody who grew up in Georgia may remember, he wrote for the Atlanta Journal. He edited it. He actually had a TV show for many, many years on Sunday mornings called The Georgia Gang. And so I wrote 4 articles, and really talking about what the paper meant to me. And I sent it to him. And as anybody who ever knew Dick would know, it took him months to get back to me. And he called me one day and said, can you come in tomorrow? I was like, well, okay. I can, what time? I mean, I have a job. And I went in, he offered me, he said, I want you to write a weekly column. And I went, Dick, I work in corporate America, and a good week is only 50 hours. I can't write a weekly column. And how about monthly? And he's like, okay, monthly. Well, that didn't last long. I enjoyed it so much. I realized I had found my passion, and I ended up writing weekly. And I really was the cheerleader. Then I was the cheerleader for the paper. These days I write more about books I've read and things like that. But I wrote about the library sale, what was going on at the nature center, or I was out riding bikes and had a wonderful time. And that was my gig, to be positive. And that's what I did. Well, I enjoyed it so much, I started writing a blog. And then I said, I just write about whatever strikes my fancy, which is essentially what I did for the paper too. It was wonderful. And I wrote a blog written in the voice of the dog. And that's what Mike is talking about. And I'd had Banjo's DNA done. And albeit he's a big black dog, his DNA came back that he was part Great Pyrenees. And the story was that they were the royal dogs of France. So I just wrote this, I'm Lord Banjo, I'm special, by God, I'm a royal, da, 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 da. And it was so well received, I kept writing them. My boss at the time, so again, Shelly, you talk about needing encouragers. He was so encouraging. He said, you need to make this a book. I love this. And I was like, yeah. So when I retired, the first thing I did was put out a book of my columns. And the second thing I did was a book by the dog. He's actually on the cover, Banjo Penn as the author. And I went to a small publishing firm here north of Atlanta it's past Alpharetta, but maybe even coming. And so I published through them, and it's all on Amazon, but it doesn't go anywhere on Amazon. At least it didn't for me. And I sold those books going to events like Mike was at, going to festivals. And trust me, I knew that the people came to see the dog because Banjo came with me. He even had a royal purple robe. He couldn't come the night I met you, Mike. But, and he had a ball. And the fact that he loves belly rubs informs the character of the dog in my book. So I did all that. And I actually wrote a second dog book. And I decided I would do this through Amazon this time, that I wouldn't go through a small publishing firm. And I found somebody on Facebook who did marketing, and she also did I wanted somebody to format. I am not technologically adept. And I said, there's no way I'm formatting this book and uploading it to Amazon. Recipe for disaster for me. And so I spoke to this woman, and she said, oh yeah, I can do, your covers and your formatting. And send me a sample of your writing. Well, that was that honest person that Shelly mentioned. She said, Kathy, this is cute and it's fun, but you can pay me to help you learn how to do marketing. It's not going to go anywhere. And I said, oh, okay. Well, that's honest. I appreciate that. It hasn't gone anywhere other than at festivals because there's a dog there. And it was fun. And she said, but I like your writing. So she gave me some writing prompts, and I wrote and I was retired, what the heck. I wrote a few things for her, and the short story I wrote about a dog, I know you're not supposed to do this, but I wrote it in third person, and then the last section of it was in first person, written by the dog. She said she cried, my husband cried, my friends cried. And so she came back to me and said, okay, I've got an idea for you. And I was like, uh-huh. She said, I think you need to write a cozy mystery. Y'all, excuse me. My husband is retired from the phone company. We'll never give up our landline. Just want you to know that. So it's ringing. She said, I think you need to write a cozy mystery. And I said, a mystery? What do I know about plots? I don't know anything about plots. And I said, and I only kind of sort of think I know what a cozy mystery is. And of course, by now, I think everybody knows, but it's, no sex, no blood and gore, no cursing. It's a Jessica Fletcher Murder, She Wrote type thing. And I was like, uh-huh. And she said, you can have a cat and dog in it because you're good with the cat and dog thing. I was like, uh-huh. And she's just kept giving me input, saying, and the protagonist needs to have a lot of money. So maybe she should be like the widow, and she could be the widow of a duke, and it could be in England because you love England and you just got back from a trip. And I was like, right. Well, okay, what the heck? I'll give it a try. So I did. And, you can Google anything, right? So I bought some books on how to outline cozy mysteries, how to write cozy mysteries. I learned the word trope. I didn't know what a trope was. And I was in the middle of writing the first book. Maybe I was 100 pages in, and I sent her a sample and she said, "Oh, no, Kathy, you've got to have a dead body in the first 50 pages. And I was like, okay, let me rearrange this. All right. So then I was in the middle of writing the first book and she said, and oh, by the way, you need to write a second book. I was like, what are you talking about? She said, oh, these cozy mystery readers, they want to read a series and they just soak it up. They want them right away. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I am retired and I shoot for 1,000 words a day, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm fast at it. It takes a while. And then I write it and I have to take it to the print shop to be printed. You know, heaven forbid my little printer here would print 150 pages typed. But I did what she asked. And so I put the first book out, as Mike mentioned, in February of this year, Bells, Tales, and Murder. I was going to name it, I had in my mind Bells, Books, and Murder. And somebody said, no, that sounds too much like that Kim Novak, Bell, Book, and Candle, that movie. And well, it doesn't have any witches in it. So I didn't want to do that. So I did that. I decided I couldn't be the widow of a duke. And instead I was from Atlanta and I was a widow. And the very first chapter reflects on the death of my husband. So I'm not giving anything away. That's on the back cover. And my husband has never forgiven me for killing him off in the first chapter. Sure, he's Henry, because we were out riding bicycles, which we do. And, you know, I told him he's got the best of both worlds because Lita Petkus Parker, my protagonist, you know, reflects on Henry all the time and tells these wonderful stories about him. I said, it's like being a fly on the wall at your own memorial ceremony. I mean, you know, but they say, write what you know. And Lita has a lot of my characteristics. I like to say she's the more accomplished, adventurous Kathy. And she has a lot of characteristics of people I know. So Lita is an avid reader. She plays words with friends every morning. She reads the Wall Street Journal, although she has to read it online because she can't get it delivered in the Cotswolds where she lives. And so she wasn't widowed for very long before she decided, with the input of her financial advisor. I mean, remember, I'm a banker. You have to have your financial advisor help you, who said, you know, you could retire early. Why don't you just do that? And I think one of the lines in my book, we all had bosses like this, right? I said, it was one too many late night calls from the boss from hell. And I just decided that was it. I was going to retire. I had a boss like that. I actually sat at this desk I'm sitting at right now with a little headlight on my head one night, because the power was off in my house and she wanted to talk to me about a presentation I was working on at 10 o'clock at night. So she really is the boss from hell in my book. She probably doesn't have read my book. She wouldn't recognize herself even if she did. In any event, that's what I wrote. And she's Greek because I'm Greek. There's a Greek recipe in the back of every book. Her friends that she made in England love her for her Greek food and I think a few other things. Because I'm an avid reader, there's a book club meeting at the Book Nook in the village every month, and they read a book and it's discussed and referenced, and a lot of books are referenced. I've had some of my reviews say I always find new books to read when I read Kathy's books. So that's how I came to write cozy mysteries. The Christmas book that Mike referenced is Whiskers, Wreaths, and Murder. And every book has, you probably can't see this, but every book has a little white dog on it. Mm-hmm. And I found him on Facebook. I wanted the dog to be a Great Pyrenees, but I didn't want him to be huge. You know, they weigh 120 to 140 pounds because I wanted her to be able to take him on the train. You can actually buy a ticket for your dog on the train in England. And I didn't think she wanted that big a dog. But I found this little dwarf Great Pyrenees on Facebook. And like anything else, it's an anomaly. Two healthy, full-sized Great Pyrenees have a dwarf Great Pyrenees. They don't make, you know, they make mini doodles. They don't make mini Great Pyrenees. So yeah, they'll probably come to that. So as you probably know, since you're all writers, Dickens, the dog, is named for Charles Dickens, and Christie, the black cat, is named for Agatha Christie.
So your books are obviously on Amazon. Are there other places? Where can people get your books, Kathy?
The only other place is a small bookshop in Franklin, North Carolina, because I didn't go the route of, because it's self-published, and I went strictly through Amazon. I've read about using Ingram Spark to, disseminate your books to other bookstores and all, but that was just too complicated for me. So I went with Amazon, and also the boon to me has been Kindle Unlimited, because you know what that program is? It's you pay a monthly fee, and then you can download books, and I get paid by the page they read, by the number of pages they read.
Wow.
Right. Now I want to turn so we can keep kind of moving along. Brent McClain, her One Good Mama Bone, that came out in 2017, ended up winning the Willie Morris Award, which is a national award, comes out of New York City for Southern fiction. You've won the 2019 Patricia Wynne Award for Southern Literature. One Good Mama Bone's been published as Mama Red in France.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you got to go over to France.
I did. Oh my gosh, I got to go to Paris and Bordeaux. Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of like a dream.
Mike, that was like, of all the things that have happened, that was a top of the mountain experience. I mean, this little Anderson, South Carolina country girl over there in Paris, it was deeply, I'm still can't, yeah. It's just,
when you posted that, I was applauding, because I thought that was like, it's like that extra crown, that you get to wear, that your book about let's face it, it's about a young boy. It's actually a little bit more than that, but it's basically about a young boy raising this cow in South Carolina, during your younger years. It is just that heart-wrenching story. And when you talk about Kathy, you talk about Cozy Mysteries having a murder in that opening chapter or so. You read Bren's One Good Mama Bone, and it starts out with this birth on a farm that goes awry, basically, and it sets the tone for the story. It's just these are characters that you just get wrapped into. So I don't want to rave too much more about the book, because I'm going to let you do a lot of your talking about the story. But you have two loves, writing and animals, and it shows up with everything that you talk about, everything you show, your stories, and it began early. Like Kathy, you've got a BA in English from Furman University, and then taught high school also for 1 year. But your writing took you out of the classroom right away. Smart move, young lady. Although I'm sure that a lot of kids would have enjoyed it, but your career would have been ruined. You got involved in journalism. You wrote for your hometown newspaper, the Anderson, South Carolina Daily Mail. You worked as a radio reporter, a TV reporter. You were an anchor, so you were a TV personality. In 1990, you started your own communications company, which was also the time when you started writing, the beginning of writing One Good Mama Bone. And that is where you make your reference. The book was a 27-year success journey, when you put all that into the conversation, an overnight success in 27 years. There are so many accolades. I just suggest you go to see BrenMcClain.com and read them, because we don't have time to read them all. She's published by University of South Carolina Press, by the River Story imprint, which Story River, I got it backwards. Story River imprint, which the first editor at large was Pat Conroy himself. So you have a relationship with Pat Conroy, which makes envy of most writers anywhere in the South. Bren's story began with a love story between her and a mama cow. And if you will go back and investigate her Facebook page, her website, you will see a love. If anybody can fall in love with a cow and move it from being just a number or, you know, piece of property on a farm. This is a woman who embraced a cow like a sister, probably almost.
Yeah.
You know, how, because Mama Red just passed away this year.
She passed away
When did,
July 22nd. Yes.
yes.
29 years old, 29 years old. Yes.
It was, you know what, it was a sad event, you know, that took place. You know, and because I know the attachment you had, but that cow was 20 something years old, 29 years old. You quoted by saying, Mama Red came into your life one glorious early morning in November 2008. I was asleep in my daddy's house and awakened by sounds that drew me outside to a gathering of vocal mama cows huddled in the corner of a barbed wire fence. They were calling for their babies. Also huddled several yards away up a lane of grass, these babies having been weaned from their mothers the afternoon before. This is a common practice to take calves away when they are between 6 and 8 months. Why? Because the mama cow likely is already carrying, AKA pregnant, and needs the milk for the new baby inside of her. It's one of the harsh realities of farming that we don't stop to think about. But these mothers gathered at the fence, their eyes pleading with me to bring their babies back. I knew I couldn't, but I could tell their story, one of a mother's love. And there's, if you want to know what One Good Mama Bone is all about, it's that mother's love illustrated by the cow, that part, you know, that paralleled and almost in a paradox with the young boy and her and his mom. I know you're working on, is it a sequel?
Oh, no, it's a completely different book.
This is going to be a whole, I don't know how you could write a sequel to that. Miss Brent McClain, please introduce yourself a little bit about your background, more than I've shared, and then your writing journey, because I think it's interesting. And then talk about where you're at with your books.
All right, well, thank you, Mike. You know, like the rest of you, I've, you know, kind of started out in corporate America. I did teach high school English 1 year. I was married at the time, and my husband said to me when I came home from the first day, he goes, well, how'd it go? And I said, I said, 1 down, 179 to go. So it really wasn't my cup of tea. I love teaching. I teach now, but that confinement in the classroom just kind of wasn't my thing way back then. So I did that. I, you know, got into journalism, the hometown newspaper, radio, and this little Anderson, South Carolina girl that had never been on an airplane in my life, went from Anderson to Atlanta, Georgia, got on a plane and flew to San Francisco when I was 23 years old to go to Stanford University. Can you believe it? This little Anderson County girl, to study journalism, to study broadcast journalism at Stanford University. Oh my gosh. But I got to tell you, that's really what changed me, what opened me. It got me out of Anderson and opened my eyes to the rest of the world. So I came back to South Carolina. I was on the air, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the deal is I just fell out of love with news. I couldn't explain it exactly then. I can now, but I was drawn to corporate America. So I left my career and moved to Atlanta and worked for Bell South. And I was in media relations. And it was back in a time when Bell South didn't really need public relations because it was so heavily regulated. They created a position for me. I moved to Atlanta, and I got to tell you that I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. The second day on the job, I wanted to die. That's all I can tell you. I thought my creativity, I mean, are you kidding me? I could not stand it. But it turned out to be the very best thing that ever happened to me, because out of that boredom, I began writing fiction. I began writing short stories that eventually turned into a novel. But short stories, that's number one. And then number two, because of my background in communications, I looked around to all of those very high paid executives that really couldn't give a speech. Are you kidding me? When I set them up to talk to the media, which is what my job was, media relations, they were horrible. And so because of my teaching background, let's go back, I created a training program at Bell South to teach them how to talk, basically. And I absolutely adored it. I said, oh my gosh, this blends everything I've ever done. So I did that training program at Bell South. And then in 1990, one day when my vice president had given me something I considered especially mundane to do, I picked up a notepad, y'all, and I wrote my obituary. And it said, Brent McClain, I think I was 30 years old at the time, died today in her home in Atlanta. She was director of media relations for Bell South, blah, 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 blah. And oh my God, oh no, 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 that cannot possibly be. I cannot die here. Are you kidding me? What am I doing? And I skipped a space and I said, how would you like your obit written? And it said, Bren McClain, novelist, died today in her home in, and no offense to you all wonderful people in Georgia and especially Atlanta, but I didn't want to die in Atlanta. I didn't know where I wanted to die, but I just didn't want to die in Atlanta. So anyway, that became my kind of prescription for the rest of my life. And even today, that was 1990, 30 years later, y'all, I'm still a rollout from that obituary. Because along with being a novelist, I said that I was a communications consultant. And so I turned to my computer and I wrote my resignation right then and there, boom. And I said effective, and it would be May 4th, 1990, I hereby resign. And y'all, I walked out of Bell South with a desire to write fiction. I knew that I was put on this earth actually to do that. And I also had a skill in training. And so I figured that, I would, be able to support myself that way. And so I'm still exactly doing both of those things today. It set me up for the rest of my life. What I did not know at that time is it would take me so long to get published. The first novel I wrote was called Darby, He Liked Ropes. I got a literary agent in New York, but she couldn't sell it. And I was living in Atlanta then. I'm the kind of writer, y'all, I need to be chosen to tell a story because it takes me years to write a book. And if I'm not chosen, I don't have the butt glue to do it. I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, in, this would be in June of '94. And my next door neighbor calls me over and says, hey, can you come talk to me? And I lived in Midtown Atlanta. And because, I'm a good Southern girl with manners, I said, yeah. I knew his name was Ron. I knew he drove a white convertible Cadillac, and I knew he had a great suntan. But other than that, I didn't know. So he calls me over. I go on his porch, and here's what he says to me. He said, Brent, I turned 60 today. And I said, happy birthday, Ron. He says, I only tell you that because I've been carrying around a secret for 54 years since I was a boy growing up outside of Birmingham, Alabama. My mama woke me up one night, made me come to the kitchen, stand in the doorway and witness the birth of a baby, and then participate in something horrible. And she made me promise I'd never tell a soul. And he looked at me, y'all, and he says, I've been true to that, but I can't be true to it anymore. And I'm choosing you to tell, knowing you're a writer. So he hands me this little starter dough piece about this one night. And I left that man's porch, and it would take me 6 years before I could write that story. And that novel was called Willie June. So that was novel number 2, Willie June. And I spilled forth verbatim from what Ron had told me. But y'all, I have to tell you, that novel didn't work. It was a bad novel. In writing that book, I figured out that I really wanted to tell a story that celebrates motherhood because of my own relationship with my mother, which was absolutely stellar. But my mom died in the writing of that book, y'all. It took me from 1999 to 2004 to write it. She died in that process, in that time period. And I finished the book, but it was not good. And I had 2 very trusted readers who had the courage to say, Bren, no, Nobody will read this book. That woman is a monster. Well, that woman, y'all, in Willie June was Sarah Creamer, who would become the mother in my One Good Mama Bone. So I put it up. And then I'm going to pick up where, Mike, where you picked up that section that you read about that early morning in 2008. So I got busy about life, y'all, from 2004 to 2008. And then I'm visiting my daddy on that farm in Anderson that Mike was talking about. And it was in the midst of a weaning of these mother cows and their babies. And those sounds woke me up. 5 o'clock in the morning, those sounds wake me up. I get dressed, I go out to the fence. And y'all, I knew in front of me was the missing piece about mothers right there in front of me, which means this: do you have to be ruthless as a writer? You have to have merciless, really. Out with Willie June and in with this new story, because I made a promise to that mama cow in that deep corner fence. I said, I can't bring your baby back, but I can tell your story. That mother cow became my Mama Red. And a few weeks later, my daddy told me he was going to sell her for slaughter. And I bought Mama Red from my daddy in December of 2009 and gave her sanctuary. And she passed away just this past July. Writing to me is very personal. If it's not personal, I can't do it. And so I'm all wound up in this really promise to Mama Red, because One Good Mama Bone really is about the promise that I made that mother cow in that early morning fence, that I told her I would tell her story. And so that's what this is. One Good Mama Bone is the story of a woman named Sarah Creamer. I pulled her out of the Willie June novel because I loved her so much. And it's about this woman who doesn't think she has a mama bone. That is maternal instinct. Because when Sarah was 6 years old, her own mother said to her, you ain't got you one good mama bone in you, girl. And y'all, this novel is about what Sarah Creamer goes through to give herself a new narrative about herself. And it comes with the help of a mother cow, a cow named Mama Red, who comes to live in her midst and teaches her all things mother. And so that's what that was. Mike, I tried to get a New York agent for that book, but nobody would touch a book like a cow. Does a cow talk? A cow. And then finally, I met a guy named Jonathan Haupt, who was the editor of the University of South Carolina Press, and he had just started administering Pat Conroy's imprint, Story River Books. And so when I sent my novel to Jonathan, and this would be like back in 2015, when I sent my novel to Jonathan, I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience, but I knew I was stepping in to what had been set up for me. It took a year because it's a long process with that press, right, but it happened. And Pat Conroy read my book and wanted to publish my book. And that in itself, to me, is literary nirvana. So I never, ever gave up. I believe I was put on this earth to write. And so it took me a long, long time, Mike, a long, long time, but I wouldn't trade this journey for anything in the world. I have to write the book or the stories that I and I alone can write. And I was chosen to tell this. And I think when we're chosen, the rest of the way will be made.
What's the old saying? Write for yourself, edit for your audience eventually.
Yeah.
Because those are going to be all these gates, that you got to get through somehow. Once you've written the story that only you can write, but you got to find a way to get it through all those gatekeepers. And it is a daunting task. So yours is a story that I would love to get with a group of authors in a room and listen to you talk more about that, to give them that encouragement more. For the readers that are listening, and we've got a great group here tonight, I highly recommend One Good Mama Bone for sure. It is still available everywhere. It's now coming out in paperback.
No, it came in paperback in 2018, a year after after it did. So no, it's been out in paper. The hardback
Okay.
edition is out of print, but it's only in paperback now.
I'd
All
like
right,
to
got
say,
a question?
oh, well, if you get a chance to listen to the audio, Bren has done an amazing job. She read the book herself, narrated it, the entire thing. Fantastic. I highly recommend. Hold the book and listen to her talk. You'll enjoy it even more.
Thank you, Ruth.
Well-
Thank you so much.
But listen, I want to thank, and I'll go back to Chellie. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing in, to helping a lot of people find, their way in life and finding their careers, and how you support young people in that challenge. I also, my hat's always off to you as a great encourager for what we're doing at Hometown Novel Nights. You're always there when we need you, and I appreciate that. Kathy, it is so wonderful to be with you again. And Bren, my wife and I both look forward to coming back up to South Carolina and catching up with you up there. So,
Okay.
Hey, listen, I want to thank everybody. We had a great turnout tonight. Please follow up with all these authors. Get their book, get their books, go online and order them. And remember, January 21st for the Writers Program. And then our next regular author program will be in February, the third Thursday in February again. So pass the word about Hometown Novel Nights. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks for-
Thank you. Thank you. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.